Kia ora everyone, it's Hannah here. I thought we'd do a very special, more colloquial episode today. So we'll be talking about musicals and disability, which should be very fun. It's going to be more of a preamble chat. So I recognise that in talking about these topics with disability musical theatre, that disability is not a all-encompassing monolith. There are nuanced lived experiences that are crucial, and I will be discussing representations that I personally do not have lived experience with, including being in a wheelchair or having some form of visual disfigurement, so keep that in mind. I will try to be as nice as possible with discussing that, but please recognise that I am not a part of those communities. I don't want to speak on behalf of those communities if I don't have the capacity to. You know, the comment section or the email or my Instagram is probably one of the best places to create these kinds of discussions with people that actually have lived experience from those communities. So just be aware that I will be talking about them, but I do not have that same lived experience in talking about them in musical theatre. Today's episode was inspired in particular by the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade that happens every year in the States. Happy Thanksgiving to all of my American listeners. I hope you have all of the turkey, all of the yummy cranberry sauce, all of the happy, grateful family vibes that you all deserve. Originally it was just inspired by the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade because Hadestown, the new Broadway musical about actually autistic people based on the HBO documentary of the same name, that was about 7 people on the autism spectrum that want to go to a spring formal. I was very inspired by that, being someone that's from the autistic community and has the special interest of musical theatre. I'm very excited. I'm not as apprehensive as I once was. I was very hesitant at the start of it. I was like, is this going to be another music? It doesn't seem to be. That people that are cast as the autistic people are actually on the autism spectrum themselves, which is amazing. Love that. I thought this would be more of a chat to just discuss what representation generally there is in musical theatre, any kind of examples I could find that were the most prominent. This is more of a generalised look over the history of Broadway. I won't be speaking about The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I won't be speaking about like the entire history of disability musical theatre because that's a whole other podcast episode. I just thought we'd do like a couple of examples and just what my initial thoughts are on how to dance on a hiatus. Let's get into it. So if you're wondering why I'm dressed like this and wondering why the video's on, it's because Spotify said it was good for engagement, but actually I just wanted an excuse to dress up as a person from a musical that I've been obsessed with lately. So if you know who she is, I'll do a little bit of a twirl here. But yeah, that's why I'm dressed. This is why I have the camera on, was because I really wanted to get little fun cosplay vibes, because today's episode is about musicals. So why not dress up? Because I don't care if Halloween was last month. I didn't have a Halloween celebration, so you're getting it now. But anyway, I just thought it would be nice to have a discussion about what kinds of representation there is, if any, and even just the very process of getting to the theatre to go see the show is a very privileged aspect of classes. Being able to afford the flights, being an international fan, being 19 hours away on a very expensive flight that would require a lot of money to go see a show. It touches on further intersectional issues, and trust me, I would be on a 19-hour flight to go see the show if I could, because having so much representation in a medium that is my special interest, that's the equivalent of going to see, if your special interest was Star Wars, going to see Star Wars, but you could only see it at one specific theatre for a set amount of time, and after that you couldn't see it again. That's how this show feels for me, because I know that this theatre is the kind that needs to be funded, that continues to be funded. I hope that it is this season's equivalent of Kimberly Akimbo, the downtrodden underdog vibes at the Tonys, which, if you know, the Tonys are the equivalent of the Oscars for musical theatre. The West End also has them. They're called the Oliviers. But yeah, I hope that the show wins a bunch of awards. I hope that the continuing autistic advocacy continues to be a key focal point and a step forward for representation with musical theatre. So I thought we'll just get into the fun little discussions. And also, to preface this, I have been to New York. I went to New York in January of 2023. I went to go see the Into the Woods revival, Hadestown, and I was supposed to see A Strange Loop, but unfortunately because of a non-COVID related illness running through the cast, it was put off, so I couldn't go see it, which I was very sad about, because that would have been the only musical that I went in blind. I was going to go see Kimberly Akimbo, and I am now permanently salty that I didn't, because I'm obsessed with the cast recordings. And also, we love the Tony Awards, we love them winning, we love them sweeping vibes, but yeah, I recognise that there is also privilege in being able for me to go in the first place. If I didn't have the scholarship in which I was in the States, I would not have been able to afford to go in the outset to go to New York City while I was there. There's also that financial aspect that plays into the privilege of being able to watch live theatre when it opens. And even Broadway HD, which is so important to the democratization of theatre, my VPN not being part of the States means I can't access it because I'm not an American citizen. I don't have a VPN. There's that as well. So I just thought I'd touch on a little bit of a preface of the intersectional issues that come with musical theatre, which is quite odd because you can shove in like the prom. Why would you want to when you could go to this lunch tutorial because James Corden exists? What kind of executive producer decided to put James Corden in the show? It's like the meme with Meg and Peter Griffin with the shotgun, and it's just like, I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to whoever decided to put James Corden in a musical again and have him play a gay man. Also, his American accent's not that good. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. I think it's important for me to mediate the apprehension within myself between musical theatre and its representations of disability. So I think there's a couple of case studies that I can draw on that I think would be pretty significant. So firstly, we have Nessa Rose in Wicked, who's one of the supporting characters. She is in a wheelchair at the start of the show, and she has this whole interpersonal drama with Bok and Glinda. She's the sister of the main character Elphaba, and the main character Elphaba has been her support person, having to wheel her around, etc., until Elphaba just goes magic, and it's just like sus as all heck, because in the show there is a curing disability scene wherein Elphaba casts a spell on her shoes. She casts a spell on her shoes, and she's able to walk again. Now, that is the best place, having someone in a wheelchair be cured. Ellie Stroker would like to have a word thank you. So for people that don't know, Tony Award winning Ellie Stroker, she won a Tony Award for her role in Ado Annie in the Oklahoma revival. She has been in the Deaf West production of Spring Awakening as Anna. That's an amazing production, by the way. All of the words, all of the lyrics, all of the stuff was all signed in American Sign Language. So there's that too. And also the roles of the people that were signing had a double up, so they had a vocal double up and the sign language and the person who was signing the role, so that it was technically like split in two with the vocals, the instrumentation. So like, for example, Vendla's in the opening scene with Mama Who Bore Me, Vendla, the person who's signing, is standing on one side of the mirror, and then on the other side of the mirror is the voice and guitarist who sings Vendla's parts. So I thought that mirror scene was a really cool deconstruction, because traditionally, Vendla stands on the stage and has her body up to the audience as she's singing, but having the audience reflect back to her, the signing one and the singing one, is a very cool deconstruction of it. So that way you can see that visually that they're both the same person, or that they're both playing the same kind of role, which is really cool. So that way you have the representation of signing, but you also ensure it's equal for people that may not understand American Sign Language. So there's that. Ellie Stroker was in that production. She was in the Deaf West production of Spring Awakening. She was in Oklahoma, and I don't know how she'd feel about that kind of stuff. Nessa Rose exists. There's a very interesting point where Nessa Rose is in this fantastical world of magic beyond comprehension of normal human expression, that's inherent within the musical theatre genre. But the stereotypes, despite all this fantastical world building capabilities, these stereotypes that are present within mass media still continue to be perpetuated with the curing narrative. And it really does. Music theatre has a very big focus on the visual demarcations of physical difference to justified forms of disabilities. When I think of Violet and Foster, when I think of Phantom from Phantom of the Opera, these visual demarcations of being monsterly, being otherworldly, being unusual, and having those aspects to them cured, especially in the case of Wicked, what does that say about the disabled people that sit down to watch a show? When you think of the little girl in the wheelchair who wants to see herself, and you see the one wheelchair-bound person get cured because of magic, what does that say? When in comparison, if you were to sit down in Oklahoma, Ellie Stroker's disability doesn't matter as much. It matters for the characterization. She has this amazing capacity to perform, which is even another concern, is that when you have people that are disabled, and how much does it feed into the inspiration narrative that continues to be perpetuated. It's important because when those little girls or when those little boys or non-binary daisies, whoever, so sit down and watch a show because they're excited to see that with the inaccessible seating in the environment that should be catered towards, make sure everyone can see a show, because it's a vision of seeing a show, and make sure that these physical demarcations of difference aren't, not that they don't exist, but that they can be provided with some form of authenticity rather than just the superficial. Like, it gives me very much Christopher Boone vibes in Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. In that show, Christopher Boone is an autistic person. It's based on the book, which I didn't like the book in the first place, but it's a whole other story. That could be fun. I could do a little review on that. Maths and stuff. I do my maths. I'm like, I'm out of here. My brain checks out. I'm like, absolutely flipping not. I did have to read it though, because I was like, oh, this is what an autistic person looks like. An autistic person doesn't look like me. Okay, cool. I'm the person that's dressed as a musical theatre character right now. So who's laughing now? Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime was interesting because the staging seeked to inhibit the physical mind space of an autistic person, which is fine, I don't mind that, but I thought it was interesting that the visual excess element was there, like the visual difference was there, so it placed, I know that's the function of the narrative, is to establish his mathematical capabilities beyond human comprehension. When the physical mind space of an autistic person is an inherent form of the neurotypical gaze, it just re-perpetuates these neurotypical aspects that are apparent within mass media. And who are we letting in? Who are we letting in to look at our mind space? What kind of implications does that have for our character? Are we just seen as we can contribute beyond us / we live in a society because capitalism is a thing? And I hope that in the future that disabled people will have the capacity to see themselves reflected in media that distinguishes them in more nuanced ways than whatever in the heck the visual mind space of Christopher Boone is, which does give me very big 21 music vibes. Which, that's even complicated further since he has come out as diagnosed autistic. But it's further complicated because when the movie came out, it was the way in which I was analysing it was neurotypical lens, neurotypical gaze vibes. So there's that too. Also, speaking of autistic people, there is a very interesting headcanon in the Broadway community that Orpheus, who is in Hadestown, so the quote-unquote modern retelling of the Greek myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, and people have headcanons that, especially in the autistic community, that Orpheus is autistic, which I can see. From Reeve Carney's performance that I saw when I went to go see the show, which is a whole other thing of privilege, that his characterization, his performance, there are certain lyrical changes, like people would say that those would be his vocal stems, which, to be fair, I do vocal stem a lot. His blindness to the world, when his capacity to see the way the world could be, his ignorance of Eurydice when she is complaining about being hungry, and imagine a household complaining hungry. I'm kidding, oh my goodness. Certain characterizations, certain aspects of the autism spectrum, people have related to that from the autistic community, so it is understandable in some capacities to be like, ah yes, we have found the brethren, which is great. And from what I've heard, Reeve, well, he's left now, Jordan Fisher's taking over as Orpheus, which he sounds great from what I've heard from like the official video released by the Hadestown social media page. He sounds great, but the characterization aspects of Reeve Carney as Orpheus, allegedly, I don't think it said, allegedly based on elements of people from the autism spectrum, so that's pretty cool, but it's not explicit, so you really have to look in between the lines, which I don't mind that. When it comes to how to dance in Ohio, how do you deal with the aspects of ASD representation when the people themselves are on the autism spectrum, which is great. So from the performance that I saw on the Thanksgiving Day, Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, from a lot of their social media posts, a lot of their behind the scenes, a lot of their feedback incorporating, they seem to be very open to suggestions about how they can better nuance representations. They've put the call out for artists, so autistic artists that can draw or paint, or apparently there's like talks of collaboration, which is pretty amazing, which does give me flashbacks to the time that the Wicked fan art 20-year anniversary competition came out. It's a whole other thing. I find it interesting because this collaborative approach is more of what we need in theatre, because with Wicked, it's based on the book that's not written by a disabled person. It's like a minor character, but in having the collaborative approach to autistic people being asked for their opinions, being asked for feedback, you're able to freely email them. And I think it matters with so many. I wouldn't say that I'm not the only person that has an autistic special interest in musical theatre, because there's so many autistic people in the world, and there must be so many people that are neurodivergent. I keep thinking about memorizing all of the shows. How many people have memorized shows? How many people have memorized over 50 shows? How many people have memorized over 100 shows? So that's not like a precursor to ASD, but I'd say that considering the amount of musicals that I know, just off the top of my brain, and if you ever need good musical recommendations, I'm more than happy to put them in the description, because I'll get you onto some real depressing shows, get you into some really gonna make you cry Les Mis levels of dying, so I'll do that. But why does it matter? Why should it matter? Why should it matter that autistic people are being represented in a musical? Because the people that are actually playing the role are actually autistic people. And it matters when we as a community are representing ourselves so openly and honestly and nuanced. And often there's the saying that if you can't act, if you talk and then you can't talk anymore, you sing. If you can't sing anymore, you dance. So that kind of thing of having a more unique, vulnerable capacity to express yourself. And with musicals, a lot of times people resonate with lyrics so strongly that you can't not have some kind of relatability. It's like, why do people scream Taylor Swift lyrics at like 3 in the morning? I haven't done that, but I'm sure there's millions of people that have. I'm sure there's millions of people that will listen to Taylor Swift nonstop. How is that different from listening to Lizard Boy, for instance? How's that different to listening to Avenue Q for the millionth time? How common is that to listen to one song from a show over and over again? How long is it? How common is it? And it matters. It's just wild. I'm very grateful and I'm very excited for the show. Aside of disability representation in musical theatre, but it is a privilege of being able to afford to go see shows. And please, if you can, support local regional theatre, because that's what makes smaller communities thrive. Like, we don't have the Jimmy Wars. We don't even have we just don't have the population here to do musical theatre like people in the States do, and even then it's such a competitive industry that no wonder why people that are disabled that have these physical difference or may have difficulty, if they're not masking in the audition room, they might be told they have a blank face before they perform. That might be off-putting. It's like the repeat of job interview process, being told that you can have quite a robotic voice. How does that affect you when you're going in for jobs and you feel like you don't belong in the very community that you aimed to hopefully represent in your nuanced portrayal of certain characters? So having the 7 autistic people actually be played by autistic people matters. So it's not just another music, it's not just another person cripping up, it's not just another person that's trying to represent the nuanced representation of ASD by not singing from an emotional heart that is actually authentic. Having the capacity to see themselves reflected in the community means that people like me that are part of the Broadway community that contributes so much, whether that's through fan art, whether that's through stories, whether that's through just being top fans on musical theatre posts, always commenting, always engaging. It makes us feel as if we belong in a theatrical environment that may not necessarily be the most open, or it gives us the capacity to thrive in these environments because it's the one place that everyone can let go, everyone can feel free, everyone can feel free to express themselves however they'd like to. So yeah, that's why it matters to me. And everyone should have a theatrical outlet. I don't mind. Everyone should have some kind of extracurricular outlet, which is fine. You can play rugby if that's your thing. I mean, my thing is musical theatre, and having actually autistic people play those roles is very empowering. And I hope that if there's ever a national tour that will continue onwards, that it will keep having autistic people play those roles, that people like me can continue to watch and support and engage. Oh, and we have a little fun section at the end here. So I think that's my info dump for the day. So it's not just music, it's not just the Sheldons of the world, it's not just the good doctors of the world, it's people that are actually autistic that are representing in the Broadway community of a community that has historically been not represented by ourselves. So I think that'll be a fun little tip. So I have the other funny thing that happened. Ashley, who plays Jessica in How to Dance in Ohio, was doing a live stream before the Thanksgiving Day parade. Because of my time zone, I couldn't watch it live, so I couldn't actually watch the performance live, and I was very sad about it. And I got a little ding on my Instagram that the Ohio musical page was live, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And so I have the video recording. Thankfully I was screen recording at the time because my friend wanted to see what was going on because they were in the American time zone and couldn't see. So I was screen recording at the time. And Ashley responded to me. She responded to my little message and I was freaking out like a little fangirl. It's the equivalent of someone like a Twitch streamer. someone who's on Twitch, the equivalent of you writing a comment in chat and then seeing it and then reading it out and then going on an actually nuanced take of what it means to be autistic and what it means to care for yourself within a theatrical environment that may not necessarily be the most accommodating. So that's what I will send you off with, but thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope that we can do more musical theatre chats in the future. It's very exciting.
Love the self-care vibes. Thank you. Self-care vibes. Not all actors are great at that. I will say that right now. We haven't really grown up in a culture that prioritizes self-care in our industry. That's been one of the most rewarding things about working on this show. And it's not just about prioritizing disability access needs, but by just giving people the space to be normal human beings who need things. You know, actors traditionally are taught to suppress their needs. You know, it's very much, the show must go on, you know, half hour. Yeah, we're taught to try to be the person who needs stuff the least. And that doesn't really work out so well most of the time. I think our process and our team are proof that when you create an environment where people are allowed to openly discuss what they need without fear of being judged, it creates a much healthier work environment and a much more productive work environment for everybody. So we really hope to help kind of nudge the needle forward in the industry in that way. All right, I'm putting a little purple on here. Queen Tiffany matte. Oh, okay, let me blend this a little bit better. Starting to get better at blending. I've always been on the cosmetically challenged side, so